Welcome, fellow explorers. We're about to embark upon a journey through space and time. As we explore the heavens, I ask that you keep an open mind along the way. What is cosmology, you may ask yourself? Cosmology is a scientific term given to a branch of astronomy that concerns itself with the studies of the origins, history, evolution and future of our universe. Top cosmologists like Stephen Hawking, Neil deGrasse Tyson, just to name a few, believe our universe to be around 13.7 billion years old. They believe in a theory called the Big Bang Theory, which explains the origins of our universe. A brief description of what the Big Bang Theory is. When our universe was in its infancy, something like a billionth of a trillionth of a second, our infantile universe began to expand rapidly. This is known in cosmology as inflation. Over billions of years, as our universe grew larger and larger, it began to slow down. At this point, chaos turned to order. The gases and matter that were emitted from the Big Bang started to condense through the help of gravity into what we see today, such as huge galaxies, to stars like our own Sun, to planets like our own beautiful Earth. It is believed our Earth formed some 9 billion years after the Big Bang. This dates our Earth at around 4.5 billion years old. Leftover matter and gases from our solar system and Sun crashed and mixed with our newly forming Earth. Our early Earth was mainly in a molten state with almost no oxygen, therefore no life existed at this point. Over time, our Earth began to cool down. As it did, this allowed solid formation of the Earth's crust and for liquid water to exist on its surface.
Darwin and evolution. All these billions of years have passed by and not one single sight of life. That's because life on planet Earth wouldn't arrive until a few 100 million years after Earth's formation. It is believed amongst top evolutionary biologists that the earliest life forms were that of single-celled microorganisms, not even conscious of life itself. Human life only appeared on Earth 7 million years ago, quite insignificant in comparison to the Earth's age. We all know too well about what evolutionists believe in. If not, then here's a brief description. It is believed that humans were direct descendants of many different forms of ape-looking creatures, some called Sahelanthropus tchadensis to Homo sapiens, who is our closest ancestor. There is a timescale of around 300,000 years from when Homo sapiens walked the earth and evolved into what we see today. Darwin's theory on natural selection plays a huge role in evolution. Charles Darwin was an English naturalist, geologist and biologist who was born in Shrewsbury in 1882. Darwin was best known for his contribution to the science of evolution. Darwin's theory on evolution, also known as Darwinism, can be divided into 5 parts: evolution, common descent, gradualism, population speciation, and natural selection. I've already spoken briefly of a few of these theories, but basically Darwinism is survival of the fittest, meaning whatever species made it best in their environment would reproduce and advance from their primordial state to something more intelligent or fitting for whatever environment they were inhabiting. Like the last shore-dwelling ancestor of modern whales, the Cynonyx was a hyena-like animal. According to Darwinism, the Cynonyx evolved over 60 million years, naturally selecting its path through evolution to become a modern humpback whale. Let us jump back to the main topic at hand, cosmology. We've seen when and how cosmologists believe the universe began. Now let us have a look at where cosmologists believe our universe is headed in the distant future. There is a popular theory among cosmologists that observations suggest that our universe will continue to expand forever. If so, then as our universe expands, it will continue to cool down to a point where it will be too cold to sustain life. For this reason, it is popularly known as the Big Freeze. That's just one scenario of many in the study of the future of the universe. There is also a theory which says that the whole universe will stop expanding at some point and collapse back in itself, with gravity pulling everything back to a single point, a final singularity termed the Big Crunch, the opposite of the Big Bang. I wouldn't worry too much though. It is believed that even if any of these scenarios were to happen, we would be long gone by then. Like the Big Bang happening over billions of years, the end would be billions of years in the future also. Phew. With that being said, knowing what end the cosmologists believe that our universe will meet, let us jump all the way back before the Big Bang Theory and before time began to function as we know it. Top cosmologists like Stephen Hawking have said that, since events before the Big Bang have no observational consequences, we might as well cut them out of the theory and say that time began at the Big Bang. Simply put, science doesn't know what caused the Big Bang. They can only theorise, but never specifically hitting the proverbial nail on the head. Stephen Hawking speaks of a theory called the no-boundary proposal. In this proposal, he states that if you were to take your universal remote control and rewind the cosmos all the way back to the start, everything would condense to a single point, a kind of atom-sized, massively dense, small speck of heat and energy where the laws of physics and time cease to function. Put another way, time as we understand it literally did not exist before the universe began to expand. Rather, the arrow of time just keeps shrinking infinitely as the universe gets smaller and smaller, never reaching a clear starting point. It hasn't been a clear past or bright future for cosmology, has it? Now having a little understanding in cosmology and evolution and the future of the cosmos, please bear in mind everything that I've explained this far is only theoretical, meaning that in a sense it's all just speculation. A way for scientists to give ordinary people like you and me a scientific explanation for our accidental existence in the universe we live in. Science still can't explain how our whole universe came into existence, so it's no wonder that many scientists throughout the history of humanity believe in a creator. The most famous biologist of all time was Charles Darwin, who I've previously mentioned. He was a firm believer in the Abrahamic God, though later in life he became somewhat conflicted in his views in his particular denomination of Christianity. He struggled with the problem of evil, but despite this, he is quoted as saying in 1879, "I have never been an atheist in the sense of denying the existence of God." The most famous physicist of all time was Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein. These well-respected gentlemen had their own radical beliefs in a God. Newton questioned why God should be worshipped. He disagreed with the divinity of the Trinity. Einstein was raised as a Jew, but later in life he rejected the idea of a personal God. He believed that God was not comprehensible to us humans. God to Einstein was nebulous, universal, who didn't interfere in human affairs, and that there was no afterlife. The most famous chemist of all time is probably Marie Curie, a Catholic until her mother's death drove her to agnosticism, but never outright atheism, similar to Einstein. If some of these greatest minds in their fields of expertise believed in a creator, then surely that must rule out the denial of a God. I suppose it's really down to the individual themselves. Stephen Hawking wasn't a believer in a creator or a God, but he did toy with the idea from time to time, and has been quoted in saying on more than one occasion about knowing the mind of God. He spoke quite often of God and a creator, but in a way of trying to disprove God's existence with a complete theory that would explain everything. Stephen Hawking also authored a book called The Theory of Everything. And later on, a movie came out titled the same. Why set out to destroy something that you don't believe in? I personally believe the answer to that question, again, all depends on the individual themselves. Growing up, I always had an interest in looking at the night sky. Standing there, gazing into the vastness of space with a sense of awe and wonder. I got an amazing gift one Christmas, a powerful telescope which I would set up at my back door or down at the local park. I would look at the moon and other celestial bodies. Questions started to arise, like, are we alone in this universe? Where did all this beauty come from? Did God create all of this like those people at church believe? Surely there had to be answers to these burning questions I had. Through my curiosity, unbeknown to me, I began a journey to answer life's most difficult questions. I'm sure, like all these brilliant minds I've mentioned thus far, that they also had the same burning questions and set out to find their own answers also. I find it very fascinating that many of those brilliant minds like Einstein, Newton, Marie Curie, they all still had an open mind for believing in the possibility of a God. So, I would say to anyone listening to this to have an open mind also, like the people I've mentioned here. These well-respected people in their profession were honest enough to say that the existence of God is very plausible, even if they'd never encountered God. So I suggest when it comes to prescriptive science like evolution and cosmology, that you take it with a pinch of salt, remembering that it's all theoretical. This is where I would like to introduce you to the idea of God's existence, not only from having faith that there might be a God, but by taking a look at what the Bible says and seeing if it is at all scientifically possible for the existence of God, as opposed to a bias-based theoretical opinion where God is completely left out of the picture. Let us start by taking a look at the Bible and the questions surrounding it, like where did it come from? How long has it been around? Who wrote the Bible? Is it at all historically accurate? What is the main message behind the Bible? These are some of the many questions asked regarding the Bible. So let me start with answering some of those questions. Firstly, and most importantly, the Bible is considered to be a product of divine inspiration and record of the relationship between God and humans, consisting of the Old Testament and the New Testaments. It contains 66 books from around 40 authors and was written over many years in many different locations, and it was passed on from generation to generation until the full Bible came together as we know it today. The first book of the Bible is called Genesis, written by a man called Moses, a former prince of Egypt who was chosen by God to lead his people out of slavery in Egypt to their promised land in Israel. Moses was divinely inspired to document the creation of our universe, Earth, and the genealogy of life on Earth, from Adam to Jesus, in the book of Genesis. The opening message made in the book of Genesis is the account of creation, and it reads, "There is so much evidence throughout the whole Bible that if you would only take your time to do a little research, you'll see it for yourself. Did you know that God gave Noah the ideal dimensions for his ark that is consistent with modern day shipbuilding practices? Way back some 4,500 years. Pretty intelligent if you ask me. Another cool fact from the Bible that most of us today take for granted was spoken of in the book of Leviticus 15 verse 13. When dealing with disease, clothes and body should be washed under running water. For centuries, people naively washed in standing water, leading to further disease and infections. We only learned of this in the last 400 years or so. These are just some of the interesting things amongst many more that have come out of the Bible, a book that has withstood the test of time.
So, here we are. We're finishing up on our journey. Personally, on my journey, for the answers and the questions I raised, as I stared off into the heavens with my telescope, I later came to the conclusion that many of my unanswered questions lay in the Word of God, the Bible. It was like when Neo woke up from the Matrix. I woke up in the truths of the Bible. We all have a choice at the end of the day on what we accept as truth. But truth is undeniable, even to those who disregard it. For me, there wasn't really any room for choice, knowing what there is to know about what cosmologists believe the origins of our universe to be, and knowing what the Word of God says. So I really hope that someday you find the answers that you seek. My faith, personally, it led me to seek the understanding that the possibility of God is 100% possible. If you would just allow yourself to seek, then all things are possible. After all, in life, we're all explorers, and in this together, life's great journey of understanding, life's great journey of truth, life's great journey of love and peace. Thank you, fellow explorers, for joining me on this journey, a journey through the origins of our cosmos. Amen.